So in 7 days' time, on the 7th of February, my special old baby will turn 15. Daniel was born with an Omphalocele major, containing his liver, small intestines, large intestines and stomach. At the beginning of the pregnancy, we was all so excited. Then our excitement turned to fear and uncertainty. We was told on our first scan he had a large omphalus, and he wasn't given a very good prognosis. We was offered a termination. In fact, we was offered numerous terminations on many occasions. After refusing the termination, we was told at 15 weeks I'd need to have an amniocentesis. So for those 3 weeks, we was looking for information about Omphalocele. 15 years ago, the information was very scarce, and all we found was a 2-line sentence in a midwifery book stating that the baby's organs were on the outside of the body. At 15 weeks, I attended my hospital appointment for my amniocentesis with my partner Simon and our mums, who was with me the whole time. Just before leaving the hospital, we was given a phone number for Geeps, who I contacted when I got home. I had 5 days to wait for the results, so I thought now was the best time to contact them. The 5 days came and went, and I had a phone call stating that Daniel had no chromosomal problems and that he didn't have Edwards' syndrome nor Down syndrome. I've never felt relief like I did that day. At 20 weeks gestation, Daniel had to have a full heart scan to rule out any major heart conditions, which we found out that other than his heart being slightly twisted on its axis and a small defect at the top, which made it look like a little chunk had been taken out of it, it was all working fine. Our pregnancy continued without much problems. I had a show at 26 weeks, so I went on to maternity leave early, but I managed to hold on to him until 40 weeks. On the 6th of February, I was admitted to Birmingham Women's Hospital to prepare for the delivery of Daniel the following day. So, on Thursday the 7th of February, at 19 minutes past 12, I walked down to theatre so my old warrior could enter the world safely. Simon was in the theatre with me, and all of my family waited outside for the expectant news. Daniel entered the world at 19 minutes past 12, weighing a healthy 7 pounds 9 ounces, and he was breathing for himself. We managed to get a quick glimpse of his tiny face when he was pushed past us on his way down to neonatal. They finished the C-section and then took me through into the recovery, where I waited. Simon went down to Daniel to see how he was doing, and news came through at around about 12:30 that Daniel was going to be transferred to Birmingham Children's Hospital around 2 o'clock. So the nurse who was looking after me arranged for me to be wheeled down in my bed to the neonatal unit to see Daniel before he left. I'm not quite sure where my emotions and feelings were at this point. All I knew was that my baby was going to another hospital and I needed to see him properly before he went. So I was wheeled down to the neonatal unit in my bed so I could spend a few precious minutes with my warrior before he went. He was absolutely perfect. He had a full head of black hair and a beautiful tiny face. And most of the times when I was pregnant, I forgot that had got more than just an Omphalocele hernia. Daniel had tiny little hands, tiny feet, and a beautiful little face. And we had a baby, not just an Omphalocele. I held on to his tiny hand and asked my warrior to fight the battle he had ahead of him with the strength I knew he had. I also knew that whatever decisions we made, that every termination we refused, all the heartache and the pain that we all felt, the fear and every tear we shed, I knew it was the best decision and the right decision to fight for Daniel. When Daniel was wheeled away to go into the ambulance to be transferred, my heart broke, but I knew this was the best for him. All I wanted to do was hold him and never let him go. But I couldn't be selfish. He needed to go and get better. So I waved him goodbye with tears running down my cheeks. I think this was the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. My partner Simon and his mum went with Daniel to the Children's Hospital, while my mum and dad stayed with me. The next 20 hours went by in a blur of phone calls to the Children's and sleep. But on the 8th of February, I walked to the nurse's desk and asked if I could go and visit Daniel, which I gladly organised. So after 27 and a half hours after delivery, I was wheeled in a wheelchair into Daniel's room on Ward 4, which is a neonatal unit at Birmingham Children's Hospital. 2 nurses got Daniel out and I managed to have my first cuddle of him. I'll never forget that first time I held my amazing warrior, how soft his skin felt, how black his hair was, and how small and precious this little bundle was I had in my arms. It was then I was told that Daniel had deteriorated during the transport over yesterday and was given 12 hours. But again, my amazing old warrior, he fought the 12 hours. He found his strength to continue his journey. I managed a good few hours with Daniel that day, and at around about 4 p.m, I had to return to Birmingham Women's Hospital. But the following day, I was again allowed over to Daniel, where I spent the whole day there. On Sunday the 10th of February, I went to the nurses' station and I asked to be released. I knew I needed to be with Daniel, so I packed my bags. The doctor came round and I told him that I wanted to be with Daniel, so he transferred my care to the midwives at the Children's Hospital. I found Simon and he came to collect me. When I went into Daniel's room that day, I could see he was fighting harder than he was yesterday, and the nurse was continuously in and out of his room. Daniel's hernia was being treated with a compression bandage, but his little body was struggling and it got very serious very fast. The nurses asked me inside to go and get something to eat and a drink. So we left after that. It must have been a flurry of activity in Daniel's room. His sats dropped so low they had the crash trolley in his room. His compression bandage was released and he was put in an oxygen tent. This knocked my little old warrior back for a few days, but he kept on fighting, and over the next 24 hours he started to brighten up again. His consultant came in on the Monday afternoon to tell us that he was taking Daniel down to theatre the next day to try and start the closure procedure, as Daniel's sac had started to get badly infected. So at 5 days old, our baby, our amazing old warrior, faced his first operation. After a painstaking 5 hours, he was taken onto ITU, where he was ventilated and sedated for his body to recover. The consultant had managed to do a part closure with a Gore-Tex patch and covered his hernia with skin, but his skin was as thin as paper and was advised that it had a 90% chance of breaking down, but we would face that if needed. So for the rest of the week, we watched our baby on ITU. After 3 days, they took the sedation off him and we watched him get stronger and stronger. But we also watched his skin break down and the Gore-Tex patch come away. But with close monitoring and trying many different dressings, he was moved off ITU and back onto Ward 4. Over the next 5 weeks, he got stronger and stronger. His skin started to grow back due to the special feed he was on, and he started bottle feeding with a top up through his NG tube. And we was told after 6.5 weeks later, he was ready to go home. Our old warrior had made it through his first battle. He came home with us and me, and that was all that me and Simon wanted. We was doing his wound care, feeding him through his tube and through a bottle, and we had weekly visits to Birmingham Children's Hospital. But that didn't matter. He was home with us, and that was everything. At 3 months old, he underwent his second operation to remove the last bit of Gore-Tex patch, as his skin wouldn't heal where it was. He was only in theatre for an hour this time, and the operation went very smoothly. So, for the next 15 months, he developed as any child would do. He learnt to roll over, to sit up, and to walk, all with his hernia unrepaired. In May 2003, Daniel went down to theatre for the 3rd time for his full closure. I don't think anything could have prepared myself for that day. Another 5-hour operation, which was a full success. His tummy was flat, but to see him with a flat tummy was a shock. And again, he fought through his battles, and after 2 weeks, he came home with a flat tummy. So my soldier had won the war. He fought every battle and conquered his goals. The only downside was when the sickness started. His diet was changed and monitored for many years. He went for test after test, as even though he was vomiting every day and weight gain was very poor, he still grew and achieved everything. At the age of 6, he started playing football and joined one of our Sunday league teams. He competed every week, and at the age of 10, he competed every week. At the age of 10, Daniel was transferred over to Great Ormond Street to try and find the cause of the vomiting, as it still continued, and after numerous tests, at the age of 12, he was diagnosed with stomach paralysis and gastroesophageal reflux disease, which is causing his sickness. But last year, we also found he had something called a floating stomach. This means his stomach isn't attached to the back of the abdominal cavity. So even though he still has his problems, he's a very active 14-year-old with his whole life ahead of him. He still plays football twice a week. He goes out with his friends and he lives his life to the max. He's an amazing young man and he's our inspiration. He's a true old warrior, our soldier, our Omphalocele baby, and a pleasure to be able to call him our son. So this is my story of our journey from one proud mom to another. Our old babies are the best.